For 3 nights, smoke curled up from the hills above Kitumo village. Was it just a wood fire, as some suggested? Or was it Mutiso, the man who'd become a phantom in their midst, building something sinister? A few brave young men ventured up to investigate, but returned, changed, pale, silent, their faces etched with a new kind of fear. They offered no explanation, only the unsettling sound of their doors being locked tighter than ever before. The unease grew thick, like the morning fog over the river. The chief, a man of practical sense, called for a meeting. Under the sprawling branches of the great acacia tree, he addressed the anxious faces of the village. "We can't live in fear forever," he declared, his voice firm. "Mutiso is just a man." But his words fell into a well of silence. The name Mutiso itself was a curse on their tongues, a name that made the air feel heavy. Finally, old Mamatano, her back bent with age but her spirit unbroken, stood up. "Then go tell him that yourself," she challenged, her voice cracking the stillness. No one moved, no one dared. That very night, as if summoned by their collective fear, Mutiso descended from the hills. He was a spectre cloaked in ash, carrying a simple stick that looked more like a sorcerer's staff than a walking aid. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't even glance at the shuttered homes. He walked with a chilling purpose straight to the village well, the heart of their community. There, he dropped a small, black stone into its depths. By morning, the water, once clean and life-giving, reeked of something foul. The well was abandoned. The chief ordered men to clean it, but they refused, their voices trembling. "Let Mutiso do it," they muttered, but Mutiso, of course, did not. His presence became a constant, silent threat. A group of young boys, their curiosity outweighing their fear, saw him one afternoon by the river. Hiding behind a thicket of bushes, they watched as he whispered to the flowing water. His words, carried on the breeze, were a chilling promise. "They think I am afraid. They will learn what fear really is." The boys fled, their story spreading through the village like a wildfire. From that day on, the river, too, became a place of dread. People said Mutiso had cursed it. But there was no magic at play, only his raw, potent anger seeping into their minds like a slow-acting poison. Soon, Mutiso started reappearing at the market. He would drift between the stalls, his movements slow and deliberate. He'd touch a piece of fruit here, a vegetable there, his dark eyes scanning the faces of the vendors and shoppers. A heavy silence would fall wherever he went. He'd offer a faint, unnerving smile, then walk away without buying a thing. One day, his quiet provocation escalated. He plucked a ripe mango from a woman's stall. The woman, Amina, a person known for her fiery spirit, cried out, "Pay for that." Mutiso stopped. He turned, and the bustling market noise died instantly. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just stared at her, his eyes dark, quiet pools of menace. He held her gaze until her defiance crumbled, her voice broke, and she turned away in shame and terror. Only then did he drop a single coin into the dust at her feet. "Now it's paid," he said, his voice a low rumble. Amina didn't sleep that night. She told her husband that every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mutiso's face, his silent, powerful stare. The village grew quieter still. The sound of laughter, once a constant melody in Kitumo, faded completely. Even the birds, it seemed, had chosen to sing elsewhere. Then, one morning, the pattern of fear was broken by a bizarre sight. Mutiso was found sitting in front of the church. Not menacing, not lurking, but simply sitting. He looked exhausted, frail, and hollowed out by hunger. The villagers watched from a distance, a mixture of fear and confusion swirling among them. No one dared to approach. Finally, a young man named Baraka, known for his steady heart, walked toward him. "What do you want, Mutiso?" he asked, his voice cautious. Mutiso didn't look up. "Food," he whispered, the word barely audible. Baraka glanced back at the watching crowd. "Why should we feed you, after everything you've done?" For the first time, Mutiso raised his eyes. They were tired, but a flicker of something profound remained. "Because I am still one of you," he said. The simple, painful truth of his words hung in the air. Baraka had no answer. He turned and walked away, leaving Mutiso alone in his silent plea. That night, the heavens opened up. A torrential rain fell, washing the world clean. By morning, Mutiso was gone. The rain had erased everything, the footprints, the dirt, even the last traces of ash near his hut on the hill. It was as if the very ground had conspired to swallow all evidence of his troubling existence. For weeks, a fragile peace settled over Kitumo. Laughter returned. Children's games filled the dusty streets. The market buzzed with life once more. But in a place so accustomed to fear, peace is often just a brief intermission. One morning, the terror returned. Goats were found dead in the fields, their necks twisted at an unnatural angle, yet their bodies were otherwise untouched. And beside them, pressed deep into the damp earth, were footprints, large, bare, and chillingly familiar. Mutiso's footprints. Fear, that old, unwelcome guest, slammed back into their lives. Doors were bolted early. Men started carrying their spears again, and women whispered prayers as the sun dipped below the horizon. The chief sent scouts into the forest, but they found nothing, only the cold, abandoned hut near the river, filled with old ashes. That evening, the chief found a message at his own door. A piece of burnt wood tied with a string of beads. Everyone knew whose beads they were. Baraka couldn't sleep. The image of Mutiso's tired face haunted him. The echo of his words, "Because I am still one of you," played over and over in his mind. A knot of guilt, or perhaps pity, tightened in his chest. The next morning, without a word to anyone, he started the long climb into the hills. The higher he went, the deeper the silence became. No birdsong, no rustle of wind, just an oppressive quiet. Then he saw it, a thin, grey wisp of smoke rising from a copse of trees ahead. He followed it to a clearing. An old fire pit smouldered, and scattered around it were goat bones, picked clean. Suddenly, he heard it, the soft, steady sound of breathing, right behind him. He turned slowly, his heart hammering against his ribs. Mutiso stood there. He was thinner, gaunt, and looked years older, but his eyes were as sharp and piercing as ever. "So you came," Mutiso said, his voice raspy. Baraka stood his ground. "You can't keep doing this," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "The people are afraid." Mutiso offered a weak, sad smile. "Fear is the only thing that listens. You need help," Baraka pleaded. Mutiso took a step closer, not with aggression, but with a profound weariness. "No," he corrected. "They do." He looked past Baraka, his gaze fixed on the village shimmering in the distance below. "They will never forget me," he whispered, a statement of fact, not a threat. Baraka turned and ran, stumbling down the rocky path, his mind reeling. That night, the sky above Kitumo glowed an angry orange. The forest was on fire. Villagers poured into the fields, shouting, their frantic efforts to fight the blaze dwarfed by the inferno. Some later swore they saw a lone figure standing within the flames, watching the chaos with a chilling stillness before vanishing into the smoke. By dawn, half the forest was a charred ruin. The well was mysteriously dry again, and in the center of the village, scrawled into the dirt for all to see, was a final message. "You can fear me, or you can forget me, but you can't do both. No one ever saw Mutiso again. His body was never found, but his presence lingered. Sometimes, when a strange wind blew across the empty fields, people would swear they could hear a man's laughter, soft, sad, and full of loss. The village of Kitumo never spoke his name again, but they never forgot it either. For years to come, when a child misbehaved, a mother would only need to whisper, "Don't be like Mutiso," and that was always enough to bring a solemn quiet. To be continued. Thank you so much for watching. If you were captivated by the story of Kitumo, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what happens next.